It's the end of January, and you know what that means. That's right, it's almost February. And you know, February is a pretty short month, shortest of the year, which means it's almost March. And you know what that means? It's time for Bungo Stray Dogs' Dead Apple, the movie that we've all been waiting for. Alright, so it's not quite March yet, but hey, I'm excited! And in honor of Dead Apple coming out, and because Bungo Stray Dogs is one of my favorite stories of all time, I'm going to be taking a little time to break down its second opening today. Welcome one and all, I am Coriander Stone, and today I bring you an analysis of Bungo Stray Dogs' second opening, Reson Living. Reson Living is one of my favorite openings of all time, and that's for a lot of reasons. For one thing, there's its phenomenal use of captions, and for another, there's the way that the simple frames all come together to tell a complex and dark story, incredibly fitting for what is, of course, the best arc of the anime. And then, of course, there's the phenomenal lyrics, which speak so highly to Dazai as one of the show's protagonists and as the center point of the Dark Era arc, which this first version of the opening is for. Oh, that's something I should include. I'm going to be breaking down specifically the first version of this opening. There are actually 3 versions, but this one is the most plot-heavy and, in my opinion, the best, which is why it's going to be the one I'm touching on, even if it's a little bit slower and lighter on fast-paced animation than its third counterpart. But while I do suggest you go check out the lyrics, I don't speak Japanese, so I don't do lyrics. So let's move to the part I do, the visuals. Dark Era is the single darkest arc of Bungo Stray Dogs thus far, and so of course it's only fitting that we begin with this dark view, this somber scene on a wharf, with this billboard giving us the first bout of credits. Other than setting the tone for both the arc and the OP, we get this excellent credits shot. I love the way they're incorporated into the billboards, and also the red of the billboard gives some almost bloody light to the water, again emphasizing the darker themes of this arc. Finally, we have a singular figure standing alone under the light. From the fact of his coat's length, we can assume that this, out of our 3 main characters for the arc, is Dazai, since he's the only one who wears a long coat. This shows him alone and solitary, completely isolated, and spotlighting, literally, that isolation. This is the arc where we understand his loneliness and his isolation. This is his character arc, even if it's told from Oda's perspective. From there, we're presented with the now familiar view of the Yokohama skyline, specifically the Port Mafia building, indicating that this is the arc that centers around the Port Mafia exclusively, and not the armed detective agency. The Port Mafia's buildings light up red, both drawing our eyes to them, and also to the bloody work of the Port Mafia. Interestingly, this contrasts directly with the beginning of the first OP, which involves Dazai falling off of the same buildings. This is the part where he's still involved. This is directly before his fall. This is what led him to fall out the buildings or to distance himself from the Port Mafia. We then move into this long shot, which is incredibly cool, that shows our 3 protagonists in silhouette, and events of the story and words and books pages floating around them. This is an incredibly interesting way to call back to the literary themes of the show. Remember, Bungo Stray Dogs is an homage to many literary works. All of the characters are named after famous writers, with their powers being named after and themed after those writers' books. Additionally, Dark Era was actually originally a light novel as opposed to the manga origins of the rest of the Bungo Stray Dogs anime, which again is homaged to with this constant flow of text. It also shows some flickers of what's to come, all of which draws us into the story. The fact that we're looking down this tunnel says that this is what's the past of the 3 characters we see at their opening, their shared history. Notice that the singly most recognizable visual from the anime that we see in this box is in fact the 3 of them raising their glasses together to toast to the stray dogs. And with that as our cue, we move into the title card. From there we pick up this visual of Oda standing in this hallway. This hallway is presumably somewhere in the Port Mafia building that we saw directly before the title card, and so his turn away is a rejection of the Port Mafia visuals that have dominated the screen thus far, indicating Oda's decision to go his own way and not kill. Oda is bathed in a flash of red light, and then he is gone, replaced by his silhouette and the credits. The credits are bloody red, indicating his fate at the end of the arc. Once again, the credit incorporation is truly stunning. Incidentally, notice the way they reflect the walls around them, once again showing their true integration into the shot. Then we switch to a flickering billboard of another incredibly intricate use of the credits, and we see Oda walking past it in silhouette. Oda appears to be heading out of the darker area of the screen and into the light, signifying his resolve to go from killer to writer, a message only intensified by the fact that the thing lighting his way is quite literally words. The words of his story, because since again these are the credits. Again, excellent use of credits. Then we get another credit-lit shot, a shot of Oda staring away from the screen, away from the Port Mafia, once again rejecting it. At this point, however, the screen begins to shift on its own around him. Things begin to change. The warehouse district spins, and with it, Oda is spun back toward the screen, as he is caught up in the plots of both Mimic and Mori, both of which keep him from escaping the world he so desperately wishes to leave. As he spins around, we see he's on the phone calling Dazai for help, and this thought is confirmed as we finish the spin with Dazai, not Oda, coming full center on the screen. Dazai is on the phone by the warehouse docks where he was when Oda called him for help as Oda was running from Mimic. This creates the connection between the two. Then we get what is easily my favorite shot of the opening. This great shot of a cat sitting in an alley. His eyes open, and we see the credits reflected in them. Easily the best use of credits in the entire OP. But that shot means a whole lot more than just a cool credits show. See, that cat, who Dazai in the episode refers to as Sensei, may only appear briefly, but he's actually an incredibly pivotal character for the entire series. A character whose role must have been disclosed to the anime creators so that they would include him, and the specific details of his appearance and actions, despite the fact that they didn't know because his true identity had not even been released in the manga at the time that this opening aired. That cat is actually Natsume Soseki, the ability user of the ability I Am a Cat. Not only is he a character, but he's actually incredibly pivotal to the story overall and to Oda's personal journey. Known as being one of the best ability users in the world, Natsuki is responsible for the creation of the Armed Detective Agency, and partially responsible for the coup d'etat that put Mori in charge of the Port Mafia. His goal was to create a balance and a structure for the volatile ability users of Yokohama, and he did so by creating a three-pronged system with the military, police, the Armed Detective Agency, and the Port Mafia. He created it, he set it up, and when his eyes open, we see words reflected in it. It's the light of words and knowledge, the knowledge of a whole lot more going on than just about every other character in the entire series, because that's basically his role. Additionally, Natsuki is also the one who approached Oda with a book, which in turn inspired him to leave off killing and become a writer. In the first episode of Dark Era, we see Natsuki hanging out with Dazai and Oda, keeping an eye on them, making sure they continue down the paths he's appointed for them, and do not stray in ways that would disrupt the balance. We literally see the entire story playing out in his eyes, in the forms of words in his eyes. He is in many ways the writer behind this story, and the fact that the credits of the actual writers behind Bungo Stray Dogs appear in his eyes reflects the amount of power he holds in this narrative, even if he plays an incredibly small role. All of that pushed into a single visual that aired before Natsuki's identity was revealed to the audience of the manga. That's just stunning workmanship right there. We move from this stunning image into a picture of the bar where the three stray dogs tend to meet up. This bar is reflected in a red light washed by the words of the credits, indicating the bloody fate that awaits them and the distress that awaits them in this arc. Additionally, we see a person standing half out of sight in the corner. From the white around neck level, we assume that it might be Dazai, although that could also be a gleam off of Ango's glasses, depending. The point is that these two characters are both indelibly tied to the shadows. In direct contrast, we get this image of Oda riding up an elevator into the light, in and out and in and out, light and shadow, wrapping their claims around him. This is both metaphorically a journey and also the concrete journey he takes to go visit Mori at the beginning of the arc. when he gets his assignment that will ultimately lead to his death. Then, the lights go out again, but the credits come on to illuminate him. Oda is in the light. He is left killing behind. Despite still working for the Port Mafia, he is trying to live a good life, and the light around him reflects that fact perfectly. As if that visual message wasn't clear enough, in our next shot we see Oda turn toward the light. We see, however, that despite the fact that he is now standing in the light, his shadow is still there on the ground behind him. His past is inescapable and it will ultimately drag him down with it. Our next shot goes to Dazai, and in contrast to Oda, who always stands very much with the light, the credits are blurred out. They don't become clear until Dazai becomes blurred out. Dazai and the light words, which empower Oda, cannot exist on the same plane because Dazai this is Dark Era Dazai, a ruthless, bloodthirsty killer. And if that wasn't emphasized enough by the visual, we see the blood flow down to cover the bandage over his eye. We know that this is a quite literal representation of his willingness to die, since this is the result of the wound he receives after trying to get the person from Mimic to try and kill him. At the same time, this blood covering the side of his face is an incredibly visceral image depicting how bloodthirsty and how bathed in blood he is at this point in his life. Once again, however, the shot of Oda has changed to one of Dazai, re-emphasizing the connection between them. And this time they're facing the same direction. They're on the same side. Now we transition through this alley with a billboard and onto our next shot of note, this one of Bungo. Note, with the exception of the pre-title card scene, this is Bungo's first appearance in the opening, which makes him a relatively unknown factor, which makes sense considering the fact that Dazai is well known to us from the series and Oda is the narrator, making Bungo the big unknown. And that's exactly how he appears both to the other characters and to the audience and in this opening shot, as he walks toward us and toward the bar where the stray dogs meet, with the light of the credits reflecting in his glasses, blotting out his eyes and giving him an ominous appearance. Bungo is cast in the role of the traitor, and his motives are unknown. And this suspicious glasses blotted out affect mirrors the way the audience feel about him over the course of the arc. I don't quite get this next shot, this plane flying in. I guess it's sort of symbolic and also could represent Mimic coming to Japan, but whatever it is, we transition from that to this shot of Oda running. This is where, quite literally in the anime, he runs away from Mimic. And while this could just be an action set piece and a clip from the anime, they decided to do more with it than that, in two respects. The first is that we see the bullets freezing behind Oda, drawn out slowly after him. Our ability to see the bullets in their path ahead of time is a reference to Oda's ability Flawless, but at the same time, Oda doesn't appear to be able to get away from them, indicating his eventual defeat by Mimic. At the same time, they underline and roll past the title card of the opening. This gives us the opening's name, Reson Living, a name that references Dazai. And the fact that this image appears directly over the image of Oda's life and death struggle with Mimic indicates the tie-in between Dazai and Oda and the revelation that Dazai comes to at the end of the arc, specifically what Oda tells him as he dies. And the next visual reflects exactly that, as we see Oda and Dazai standing back to back, Oda staring up into the light, and Dazai looking down at the ground, representing their disparate viewpoints and the situations they're both in. Then we get this image taken directly from the anime of Oda in Bungo's apartment. We follow that train of thought and that part of the plot directly back into the alley where Bungo is discussed by Dazai and Oda, and this is the first time that we see Oda staring directly at the camera since he turned away from it at the beginning of the OP. Now, however, he's got a look on his face as though he's ready to challenge the camera, challenging the Port Mafia. We see Mori as he begins to set Oda up, and then we see Dazai turning sideways toward Mori as though he's finally getting an inkling of what's actually going on here. Oda opens gunfire in a creative way to bring in the title of the series, and we also see the gun bullets ricocheting off the sides of the electric lights that are the show's name, with the sparks and flickering lights reflecting the ephemeral nature of the Stray Dogs group. Then we flash from there to this picture of Bungo. Illuminated by the light of the text, we see him in the Stray Dogs bar, Unlike the last time, his eyes are clearly visible and he even turns to face the viewer straight on. This is who Bungo truly is, and the setting reveals that he truly is the person who is friends with Dazai and Oda, indicating that as much as he's a spy and all that, this trap that Oda's walking into isn't actually of his making. Despite everything, Oda turns back toward the light, continuing to move toward it, continuing to try to reach his goal. Then we see Dazai in a shuttered room. A flash of light flares through the shutters, reflecting Dazai's face. This can be seen as Dazai looking out the window of the Port Mafia building, and also is this spark of realization in which Dazai sees the entire scheme laid out before him and the trap laid out for Oda. But it's too late at this point, too late to save his friend, because now we see Oda again, but this time, although there's technically light on the wall, the light bathing Oda is totally gone. He's lost totally in shadows and can no longer see or reach it. It's too late for Dazai to be able to save his friend. And the final shot of these two billboards of identical natures facing off mimics, haha, see what I did there, the final showdown between Mimic's leader Jid and Oda, bringing about both of their deaths. This opening may have simple visuals on the surface, but the amount of depth behind them and the way in which it recalls the story, the characters, and the plot twists, even ones that were only known to the creators and not to the fans at the time of its release, just shows how much work went into this opening, and I can never not be impressed by it. And I would love to be impressed by more Bungo Stray Dogs as soon as Dead Apple comes out, but unfortunately, unless we are lucky enough to get a theatrical release like we did with Heaven's Feel, and I'm sure we won't because Bungo Stray Dogs is nowhere near as popular in the West as Fate is, I'm gonna have to wait for the DVD. Cries in a corner. Well, until then, since you won't have any of that to watch, why not check out my channel? If you like this sort of thing, then check out my other opening analyses of the first 4 Ruby openings, D. Greyman Hallow, and the second Kingdom opening, Glory Days. And if you're interested in seeing me talk about another anime that's highly literary and talks a lot about stories and the nature of stories, then check out my review of Recreators. Please like and subscribe and let me know down in the comments if you enjoyed this video. This is Coriander Stone, and I thank you for watching.